It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, February 1st. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is going to talk Flyers prospects in this system today. You must be excited, Russ.
We're not talking groundhogs?
No, that's tomorrow.
But I figure we preview it. We don't preview groundhogs?
Oh, God. We'll talk about the groundhogs tomorrow. We are going to talk Flyers prospects with a special guest on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at @Miriam. I'm here with the Groundhog Challenged Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where we post about our episodes, the latest with Flyers news, all that good stuff. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. We will be doing a mailbag, so get those questions in. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. You can make every moment more. Visit fanduel.com/locked on today to get started. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. We are thrilled to welcome Hadi Kalakeche from Locked On NHL Prospects and Dauber Prospects, super knowledgeable about the Flyers prospects in our system. And we're going to talk about those guys. We're going to talk draft, so much good stuff on today's episode. And we'll get to that right now. Hadi, thank you so much for joining us today. Looking at the Flyers prospects from top to bottom, would you say that Cutter Gauthier is your top prospect overall in the Flyers system?
See, that's tough. I do like the Flyers prospect pool. I think it's got a decent amount of good prospects. I would probably put Bobby Brink up there, but I mean, Gauthier he's so projectable. He just screams middle six player. And what's interesting about him is you see the level of pace, you see the level of intensity that he plays with, but just his ability to man transitions effectively, his ability to, make plays at high speeds. I think that combination is going to work really well in the NHL. I'm not sure how high I could project him. I don't really see him cracking a top line and being sort of a high-end play driver on the top line, but he definitely has the qualities required to sort of make it as a modern day power forward in a second line role. I think that would be something that's very realistic with him. Whereas Bobby Brink, I mean, there is a non-zero chance that Bobby Brink becomes a first liner. I don't think it's a high chance. But just the ability to play between checks, the ability to absorb pressure, to play through it. Again, he's another player with a lot of intensity to his game. He seems like the Flyers like those. So I'd say that my favorite would be Bobby Brink, but I think the most likely to become a full-time NHLer in a top six role would be.
With Brink, I agree with you. The only thing is he sometimes puts himself in bad positions and has gotten hurt because he's fearless that way. He has those tools and he has been able to play with really anybody. So that's true. And with Gauthier, I think what you're saying is accurate, especially if he's going to be a center. If you're talking about him being a winger, there is a possibility he could be a top line winger, but they want him to be a center, so that I don't see any chance of him being a top line center either.
Yeah, I think you the best position for Gauthier is as a play driver, not as a sort of complementary forward. So, in terms of what you can get, the best you can get out of Cutter Gauthier for me is probably a second line C. I do understand that he could complement other guys well with his speed, with his intensity, with his tendency to drive the net, and to carry the puck in transition. But I just what I see from Cutter Gauthier is someone who's going to be able to connect really well with his teammates as a center. I think he mans the center line really well as well. I like his tendency to cut to the inside is really strong as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Bobby Brink has gotten injured a decent amount of times because of his tendency to go a bit too hard, and that's
Yep.
what makes him a bit more uncertain. But in terms of the best possible scenario with Gauthier and the best possible scenario with Brink, I think Brink's ceiling is higher. But Gauthier is just so certain to me. I just don't see a scenario where he's not an NHLer, and I don't see a scenario where he doesn't make a middle six. So
No, I agree. I
yeah,
just want them to give him the other year in college because I don't care how good a year he's having. You can't walk in and be a center with John Tortorella with like a year's of experience. It's not gonna.
100%, hundred
Yeah,
percent.
that would not work out well. All right.
Yeah.
Um, so Emile Andre, I could give you a stat and tell you that in the NHL there's probably 8 or 9 defenseman of his size. Now, I do
Mhm,
think he's feisty, and I like his skating a lot.
mhm.
What do you think he looks like as an NHLer, if he can be an NHLer?
Well, he's going to be a guy who's going to walk the blue line constantly. Who's going to consistently create motion left to right, from the blue line and change the angle of your shots. I think that's something that's really effective in its own right. I also really like the intensity that Andre plays with. I think that is something that he has honed a lot and has improved a lot over the last couple of years. His season right now with HV71 is really really impressive. I think he's up to 20 points in 20 points in 37 games with HV71, which isn't necessarily a top tier club in the SHL. They're doing pretty well, but he's a main part of that. And when you get a player like that who's got that intensity, who's got that ability to manipulate offensively laterally, I think it's something that you can definitely invest in. I don't really see Andre as a top pair defender really ever. But if he tops out as a number 3, number 4, I think you're set in Philadelphia, especially with Ivan Provorov on that first pair. I think putting them together wouldn't be a good idea
Right.
because they do have some similar assets and it's kind of just doubling up. Whereas if you put them on a different pair, you've got a really good sort of second pair that's really centered around him offensively. I think that would be something that would be really interesting. But I wouldn't expect any top line sort of minutes from Andre really ever.
So earlier, when we were talking about Cutter Gauthier, you brought up Bobby Brink a lot.
Mhm.
And I'm curious if you think the comparison right now or the race to the NHL is more between Cutter Gauthier and Bobby Brink, or how does Tyson Foerster fit into this picture? And do you see Bobby Brink or Tyson Foerster making it to the NHL first?
Yeah, I think between Forster and Brink, I think Forster makes the NHL first, mainly because he has a more projectable frame, because he's been healthy more, and especially he's got more experience in the AHL right now. I think that's something that teams, especially a team that's coached by John Tortorella, they're going to be looking for a guy who's paid his dues in the minors, really. And I think that Forster really fits that bill, especially since there's going to be openings in the bottom 6, or almost always are every October for each team in the NHL. There are one or two spots in the bottom 6. It's very rare that a team will have a solid consolidated bottom 6 that is, set in stone, that they can't move around. So I think that Forster has a better chance to make it in the bottom 6 role. He's not my favorite prospect in the Flyer system, though. It really is Bobby Brink. I really think that Brink has more projectable elements long term if he can stay healthy, if he can sort of hone a bit more his skating, his ability to manage transitions. But I think that Forster, probably by either next year or the year after, he's in the NHL, not full time. I do think he still needs some marinating, but I think that Forster's a more likely player to make it early.
All right, so let's talk about the disastrous path that Samu Tuomaala has been on.
Yeah.
It's a journey, man. Now, last year, I was all over this, and I was assured by many other people, just not from the Flyers themselves, but it was coming from them, that,
Mhm.
hey, they were going to have a handle on it this year, and it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's been on loan for 4 different teams.
Yep.
This is the worst possible scenario that you could possibly want for a guy that you spent a second round pick on. I don't know why they couldn't get him into the OHL last year. I'm going to tell you, I think they need to get him into the OHL next year because he's not ready for the AHL. But we all know he has a great shot and he has some projectable traits. But what's your feeling on him?
That's pretty much my feeling on him. I see a very decent goal scoring winger. I see someone who's going to be able to shoot the lights out. Um, I was a bit higher on him than I should have been in his draft year, and is mainly because I was so confident in the projectability of his goal scoring elements. On top of that, he has good skating. He was pretty good in transition, both offensively and defensively. I felt that he identified his options pretty well off the rush when he was defending it as well. So those are things that I looked at and was like, yeah, this seems like a first rounder to me. But the more I looked at him in the Liga last year, and especially the more I see him this year, it's just been extremely strange. Now, there was one loan spell that really benefited him with Cutter. He played about 15 games in the second division of Finnish pro hockey. It's a very low division in terms of quality. It's not necessarily the same as the Allsvenskan in Sweden.
Right.
That's a different ball game. I feel like the Mestis is really much easier to create offense in, and he got 16 goals in 14 games, 25 points in total. That
But he
went well
can't
for him.
break out of it. Like nobody
Yeah.
wants him in Liga. That's the problem.
That's the thing, and that's why I think that the best move for him is to transfer him to junior in North American, either the CHL or the USHL. Just get him playing some games on
Yep.
North American ice, close to your scouts, where you can keep close monitoring on him. I feel like either the OHL or the WHL would be a great place for him. If you can send him to Seattle, I mean, that team could benefit from a goal scoring winger if they can put him next to Brad Lambert or Jared Davidson, or there's a lot of options there. I feel like a team like Kelowna, maybe even Regina would benefit from a player like him. Regina's struggling hard right now, and for some reason hasn't gotten rid of Connor Bedard. So I just feel like what's smart for him is to play junior, but play closer to his team. I think that's the best idea. I think the USHL would be a good fit for him, though. I think that would be something interesting for him.
I think you're absolutely spot on there, that coming over to North America would be the best option out there for Tuomaala, and hopefully the Flyers listen to that. We'll have more with Hadi coming up next.
The NFL playoffs are in full swing. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you could even combine your bets for a chance to add a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Hey, maybe even wait to see what the status of Patrick Mahomes' ankle is before you place a bet. All on the app that's safe and secure and super easy to use, so football fans don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Over the last several months, we've been digging into the Flyers prospect pool on the show and looking at some lower draft picks, even to see if there's any hidden gems or, guys that could eventually make the NHL seemingly out of nowhere from the pool. We were wondering, who are some of those guys in the Flyers prospect pool for you?
Yeah, Devin Kaplan to me is a player who I think should have been drafted way higher than he did. I've been really impressed with him at Boston University. I've been following BU very closely because of Lane Hudson, who is just amazing right now. But Kaplan he's caught my eye on many shifts. The way that he skates in transition, he plays give and goes really well. I think that's one thing that's improved. I didn't see that really from him last year in the NTDP, but that's something that's improved in his game.
He didn't really get a chance. He was a bottom 6 guy there.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
With those minutes, it was very rare to see him in really sort of quality offensive scenarios. I feel like he would have been a great winger for Logan Cooley or Frank Nazar. I think that pairing him with those two would have been really good for him. And you see it this year. He's getting quality minutes with BU. He's got 18 points in 25 games, which is pretty decent production for a draft plus one player.
And he started off slow, if I remember.
Exactly. And it's just, he's improved throughout the year, and again, what I like the most about him is his transition ability and his goal scoring. I think that he has a really good shot, but he's also comfortable distributing, which is something that I don't really see in Tuomaala's game as much. Um, which makes me think that they might have gotten a Tuomaala 2.0 in Kaplan, a player who can drive transition, who's got a wicked shot. I don't think his shot is at Tuomaala's level, but he's definitely got better distribution. Yeah, I've been really impressed with Devin Kaplan. That's one guy I would mention. Um, Probably also Elliot Desnoyers, who's been a player I've been following for a while. I think that he's off to a really great start in the AHL. And could see some bottom six minutes eventually. I don't really see him as anything more than a bottom six forward, but I really like his style, really intense. Nose for the net, all that stuff. Those are the two guys I'd say that really sort of stand out to me as sort of underrated players in the Flyer system.
I like that. Yeah, and I think Denoye is all or nothing. Like he'll either make it or he just never will make it. Like it's
Yep.
just he's just that's the way his tools are. So right now, Daryl Sutter for the break for Calgary is going to travel with the Wranglers on the road because he feels like as an old school scout, it's better to see his guys on the road and then get a feel for how they are, like under duress, under not normal, homey kind of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think John Tortorella should do that with Lehigh? It's close, so he could just really just commute for like basically one weekend upstate New York against some of those teams. It wouldn't be that bad, but I think he would benefit from that. But I don't know. I don't know if Torts has any interest in that whatsoever.
See, that's the thing. I don't think Tortorella really is interested in that, and especially I don't think that's the thing with Tortorella is he has high expectations for his players. He's a coach that's fit for the NHL because those players have those same expectations of themselves. I just don't see what he would be able to influence in his situation going to Lehigh Valley. I understand the argument for it. I think that what Daryl Sutter is doing is really smart. Keeping tabs with your AHL team, making sure that they know that there's still a connection between you and them. I feel like that's important, but I I don't know. It's a very weird situation. I feel if I see Tortorella going to Lehigh Valley, I don't know. I kind of expect him to sort of raise the
Well, I'll give
bar
you a
for his team.
scenario,
Yeah.
and this scenario happened when I was in sales for a short time. There
Hmm.
would always be these ride-alongs, and so like as in the office, you would see David Wallace be there with Michael Scott
Hmm.
and whoever else, what other salesmen they have with them, and it's the same thing. He's not going to talk to the players. He's just going to talk to LePerrier after the game and say, this is what we need up in Philly, and this is what I'm looking for out of your players. I need a couple.
Hmm.
Let's see how this trip works out and give me your feedback. That's all I'm talking about. But I'm with
Yeah.
you. I mean, he probably won't do it, but I just think he should.
Yeah, I mean, I think any coach would benefit from just seeing what's going on, being involved in the process. Just what I really sort of always have, kind of reproached to the way that the major and minor system works in the NHL and the AHL is just there's pretty much a line between the two. There isn't that much communication. There is some, like you'll have reports once a week, that kind of thing, but there isn't that sort of connective presence. I think that's something that the Montreal Canadiens have been working really well by moving their affiliate to Laval.
Right.
Literally a metro ride away, a 30-minute metro ride away. Having that
Yeah,
closest, having that.
Bouchard seemed to be the go-between, which was good.
Yeah, exactly. So it was really important for me to see that in an NHL team, to see that connectiveness. So I'm always down for an NHL coach to take a ride with the AHL team. If his team's not playing, just to go down there, check how things are doing, and just be involved in the process at all times. I think that communication and connectiveness within an organization is so important. I think that's why it would be a good idea. I just don't see Torts doing that.
Yeah,
That's
I'm with
really all
you.
it is.
I'm with
Yeah.
you.
I think you're spot on there with Torts.
Mhm.
He is way more of a delegator than a doer, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to the AHL roster. Looking at how the Flyers season has gone so far,
Mhm.
I'm wondering what your take is on the
Yeah.
overall depth of the Flyers, especially heading into the deadline and the next off season. Like, how would you look at the overall Flyers system
Mhm.
right now?
Yeah, for sure. So the thing with the system in Philadelphia is I don't see that much depth, but I do see quality. Mainly with Gauthier, Brink. Tuomaala to a certain extent. I really like Alexis Gendron. I think that he's improved this game a lot, especially since moving teams to Gatineau. That's one guy who's been playing really well.
I'm a little skeptical of him, but he has tools, but I'm a little skeptical of Gendron.
Definitely, and I understand that. Anyone coming out of the queue is going to have some.
No, I'm not a Q hater. Like
Oh yeah,
no, I'm not one of them. Listen, I've been around the block with that. All the points aren't real, all that stuff. No. But it's
yeah.
just I
Yeah.
did see him in rookie camp, and I just saw a lot of things that I know he can get away with in the queue
Mhm.
that he won't be able to in other places. That's all.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I agree with you on that. I think the queue, the lack of quality in the queue is a bit overblown. But I
This is
do.
a bad year for the queue in the
Oh
draft.
yeah,
I get it, but
yeah.
it's usually not this bad.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even then, I feel like the issue with the queue is it doesn't necessarily teach the things that you want your prospects to learn. I don't think that it's a lack of quality within the league, because you'll get players with really good physical tools. You get some players that have really good mental tools. But really, to sort of delve back into the depth of this pool for Philadelphia, there are a couple pieces. Again, I really like Devin Kaplan, Emil Andre. Cam York, in my eyes, is still a prospect.
Mhm.
Players like, there are options out there for the Flyers, but I think what's important to them is to acquire as many picks as possible, just to sort of accentuate that depth. And especially the way their year is going right now, it's almost certain they're going to get maybe top 10, top 15 pick. They might get another pick for one of their players. Just adding in the first round as well, trying to get some upside in their pool as well would be good. But I say they're about average in both senses, but I really like their quality a bit more than their quantity right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would say they're overall for this regime a little below average. But what
Yeah.
you said is true. What they do have in quality, then they're lacking in depth, and that
Mhm,
really is true. And that's why you're right about the scattergun approach to have more picks, because then
mhm.
they're likely to get more things right. But
Yeah.
what you're basically telling me is you're wanting them to do that because with fewer picks, they're not getting enough right.
Most likely, yeah. That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
There are some tendencies with the drafting in Philadelphia that kind of worry me, but especially, if yeah, I mean, honestly, I love Cutter Gauthier. I had him maybe 11th or 12th overall in my rankings. I would not have picked him at 5th. It's just he's
We
good.
wouldn't have either. This show would not have either.
We would have absolutely picked David Jiricek
Yeah,
for sure.
David Juracek would have been a great fit with Philadelphia. I think that he fits the style and the system really well.
Yeah.
And just the idea of Ivan Provorov and David Juracek long term on a first pair just terrifies me. So just that was a strange one from Philly, but who am I to tell? Cutter Gauthier is going to be an NHLer. He's
Mhm.
going to be a good one, and they wanted power forward style. I think you couldn't really go wrong with Gauthier, but it was such a safe pick. And that's the thing, is that safety doesn't get you far. It keeps your job. That's what it does. As a scout,
Mhm.
as a
Mhm.
as a director of scouting, as a GM, it keeps your job because you keep producing NHLers, but it doesn't win you championships. I mean, I remember when Kale McCarr got picked in the top 5, that was a risk. That was a big
And that's what
one.
I always try to tell Flyers fans. They're always trying to say, "Well, we should have picked Cale Makar." And Bobby Clark's got this story that they were talking about. They weren't talking about Cale Makar because nobody on the Flyers wanted anybody small back then.
Yep.
They wanted guys that were physical and big. And yes, that was a big risk coming from the AJHL, which
Hmm.
again, at that point, that league wasn't scouted very well.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was a huge risk. You could see the tools, but even after everybody could see the tools, because even in the World Juniors, he got shafted a little bit on
Yep.
playing time until like midway, I think it was, because I was covering it in Montreal. And
Hmm.
then he finally, came on and got more playing time. Even then, there were still skeptics for good reason. Like, like the track record wasn't there.
Yep. 100%.
We'll have more with Hadi coming up next. Today's episode is also brought to you by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. If you're like me, but you want to eat healthier and don't want to compromise taste, then I've got just the thing for you. You gotta try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty and it's perfect for getting healthier this year. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And they only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait for the mail to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. You can walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Over at Sam's Club, you can run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors brownie, batter, and churro. You can thank me later.
But yeah, to come back to the Flyers, I mean, it's just there are some tendencies that worry me with their scouting, with their drafting, and it's mainly that idea that safety will keep your job and all that. It's just it's conservative in nature.
Yep.
The era of the Broad Street bullies and winning games by just bullying other teams and being more physical, it's slowly but surely disappearing, and it's so important to keep up with the times. I feel like if they had gone for Frank Nazar at 5, if they had gone for David Jiricek, those types of players, Jiricek's a big guy, but that's not what makes him good. What makes
No,
him
it's a
good is how
skill.
good. Yeah, he's a skillful player, really solid and composed and poised in transition. He's got
Covers half the ice. I
he
mean, really well.
does. Exactly. I mean, you don't find players like that outside of the top 5.
No.
Rarely do you. And when you do, it's because teams like the Flyers do what they did. So it's a whole thing. But I think that the best thing for the Flyers right now is to acquire as many picks as possible so that they feel comfortable taking those risks. That's what happened with the Habs last year.
Yep.
They have been a conservative team when it comes to drafting for the longest time, and they were one of the worst, if not the worst, drafting teams in the league.
Well,
This
we
year,
could start with Louis LeBlanc and work our way down, I guess.
yeah, that's what I'm. That's mainly what I'm mentioning. But the thing is with that is that they acquired so many picks last year
Yeah.
that they were able to take a shot on Lane Hudson, on Owen Beck,
Right.
on Vincenz Rohrer and Cedric
I don't even know if
Guénon.
Beck was taking a shot. Beck can play. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
Lane
100%.
Hudson's taking a shot because of the size, and I get
Yeah,
it. He's got everything else. Like, he's tremendous at everything else. So
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
he's literally, he's probably going to be a Hobie Baker candidate by the end of
Oh
this
yeah.
year, and he's a freshman defenseman who's
Yeah.
I think he's 5'10" now. We're not even sure. Like, it's a whole thing.
I don't know if he's 5'10". I've
He,
stood near him.
he-
But he could have grown. He's at that age.
Yeah, no, see, that's the thing. The more picks you acquire, the more confident you are in taking risks, and I think that should be the objective for the Flyers right now. If you can get a 5th, 6th round pick for a 4th line player, you might as well just go at it. You never know what you can get with that, and the more picks you have, the more risks you take, and that's what the Flyers need right now is risk.
I definitely agree with you there. So, taking all of that into account, is there a specific type of player the Flyers should be targeting in the upcoming draft?
I feel like the Flyers could really use a right-handed defenseman, and again, they had their shot last year with David Jiricek. They didn't take him, but this year, there are a couple options that I would definitely consider. They're almost definitely going to go for a guy like Dmitry Simashev or someone like that because he's big. He covers a lot of ice. Pretty physical, really aggressive. He's their style of defenseman. But I feel like what would benefit him would be a guy like Axel Sandin Pellikka or
Yeah, Pellikka is to me, the Flyers' way lately is they want guys there quicker because
Mhm.
of the job factor and everything. Pellikka will get there quicker.
Yeah.
Simashev has more tools for sure, but
Mhm.
Pellikka has what he has already honed. And you saw him in the World Juniors on the power play. He's really good.
And he
He's
doesn't
actually,
miss. He doesn't
yeah,
miss
he
on a
does.
breakout. He
No,
just doesn't miss. He's a
no.
breakout machine. I
Yeah.
don't think I've seen him miss a breakout pass, a skating lane, anything like that. He's so efficient at breaking out pucks.
Which is a huge gap for the Flyers right now.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
100%. Another guy who's really good at that is David Reinbacher. Another really, really good breakout facilitator. If you're looking at a right-handed defenseman who's good on breakouts, those are really your 2 options in the first round. I think Sandin Pellikka will be gone by 10th overall, especially if we look at drafts like 2018 and 2019 where teams were just jumping on defensemen early and leaving talent on the board because they wanted to strengthen their D. I think we might see a similar scenario this year, even though for me, the top 10, I've got 9 forwards. Top 15, I've got 13 forwards. Like it's
Yeah,
that kind of draft this year.
it is.
Um, so you look at that and you think, okay, well, if the Flyers are picking top 10, I'd understand for them to pick a forward, but if they do choose to strengthen their D, I think signing Pellica is the best option. But in terms of forwards, they've got options. I think that a guy like Will Smith will really bolster their skill. Give some upside to their prospect pool. I think that Will Smith is a better prospect than Cutter Gauthier in terms of overall upside. You look at guys,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
yeah,
The funny thing about Smith is I've seen him about 4 or 5 times live this year.
mhm.
Every time I wanted to write him off in a game because I'm like, I don't know, he's just
He
he
just
comes
pulls
up with
something.
some great plays. He
Yeah,
does, and it might be in the third period. It's very Panarin-ish like that, and
yeah.
so he's just sort of trained me now to just like sit and wait, even if it's not the best looking game from him. All of a
Mhm.
sudden, there's going to be a play or two where he's going to have an impact.
Yeah, so one thing I do when I scout prospects and I want to look for hockey sense is I watch them maybe 10 first minutes of the first period, and then I skip right to the third. And if I see a drastic difference in the player's ability to absorb pressure, to manipulate play, to open up lanes, he's connecting on more passes, he's trying more stuff, then you got a player with hockey sense. He's a player who
Yeah,
within a game is able to identify what his opponents are going to do and adapt. And that's Will Smith. I see that in spades. He's got the mitts as well. I call him Will Smiths because of the hands that he's got on him. It's just ridiculous. Playmaking ability. One guy who's almost definitely going to slip, who I've got in my top 6, is Andrew Crystal, and any team would be lucky to have a guy like that. But I
yeah,
don't think
he's
the
a
Flyers go
terrific
for it.
player.
I don't
It's a
think the
shame he was hurt and couldn't play in the top prospects because more people would have at least known
100%.
who he is. Yeah.
100%. But I don't think the Flyers are going for that type of player. So I think if they go for a forward, they're going to go for that USA center and Will Smith. If they go for a defenseman, it's almost definitely going to be Samu Pellica or David Reinbacher. If they're
Yeah,
smart.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
It'll just depend on how the Flyer season plays out and if there's a lottery ball, where it falls.
Yeah.
That's the key. Right.
Yeah.
Hadi, this has been so great.
Mm.
Such amazing insight into the Flyers prospects and our depth. Where can people find you out there to get more
Mhm.
great information on NHL
Of course.
prospects?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at HadiK_scouting. Quite easy to find there. You can find me on YouTube. I've got the podcast up there, the Locked On NHL Prospects podcast. I've also got my own channel where I post some prospect analysis videos sometimes, breaking down data, video, all that stuff. And you can find the podcast on Twitter as well at LO_NHL Prospects. We're taking a little break right now just to restructure, maybe find some additional help and making sure that we've got a better product out. But eventually, we will restart some episodes 5 days a week. It'll be a fun time for all. Yeah, and you can find me at Habs Eyes on the Prize as well. I write some articles there about the North American prospects of the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm the QMJHL scout at Dobber Prospects. It is a lot of work, but that's the industry right now. You put out your feelers and get a couple things started, and yeah, it's just a fun time. But Twitter's really a one-stop shop. You find everything there.
All right. Once again, thank you to Hadi Kalakeche so much. Great information
Yeah, it
and
was
good
jam packed.
discussion.
Yeah, I
With-
really enjoyed it.
So hopefully we'll be able to have him back on as we get closer to the draft and get into the nitty gritty of who we think the Flyers should be picking this year. We will be back again tomorrow with another bi-week player profile. We're going to do our poll winner from over on YouTube. Travis Konechny was far and away the most requested player in the poll. So we're going to take a look at his season thus far. As a reminder, we want to hear from you. Send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at LockedOnFlyers, or you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.